Cool. All right. Welcome back to Yin and Yang, the podcast. This is episode 68. It's going to be just Dan and I, and we are, talk about our lives, some big changes recently. I got married. So, yeah, this might be good to talk about, you know, what that entails, for myself. And then I'd be curious to hear what Dan, your experience through that. And of course, some details we may change to protect privacy, for our significant others and for ourselves. So just be aware of that. But I think the underlying truth, the principles will be this will be the same. It will be the truth, yeah, according to us. So, but yeah, I got married a few months ago, and I mean, prior to that, it wasn't like the huge change because it was just like filing papers, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I just filed papers and we were already living together. So uh we just filed the papers. We didn't do the wedding late. The wedding will be later this year, but yeah, no major change. I think one thing was that we went to a family member, like like a one of my old family members on my mom's side passed away. Like she was
Oh,
95. Yeah.
oh,
And
okay.
yeah. So we went to Taiwan together for that. And I think that was a kind of a, and she came at that point, we were already married. So she came as my wife, right?
Right.
And so I think that experience really brought us together, that was like a good, I guess, it's like, okay,
The
so
debut
the debut, right?
of
It's
James,
like
the married person with
a
his
married
significant
person,
other.
right? This ain't no just girlfriend, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's like a family event. It's a somber event.
right.
So
So
yeah,
how, I mean, well, obviously she's met your parents now and you've met her family.
yes, yeah.
Has anything changed as far as like that dynamic between you and your parents?
Uh, Myself and my parents, or her and my parents, I
You and
guess.
your parents and then yourself, her and your parents.
Uh, I think once they knew that we were engaged, then they knew that I wasn't. I'm not just messing around. This isn't like girlfriend number four, three, five. Like this is just this. I Once they found out I was engaged, then they're like, oh, okay, it's about time. I'm almost getting closer to 40, so they're like, okay, and so I think because of that, they are more um they're more willing to support me, like financially, because then they realize, okay, so he's getting married. He's not just floating around. And I have full-time job too. So, um, so I think what happened was that once they found out that I was committed and engaged, that that was more of when the shift was, versus like from girlfriend to engagement versus
Right.
from fiance to married. But of course, there are like some subtle changes of like where now just using the phrase wife versus fiance, and that kind
Yeah.
of changes the kind of the conversation a bit. It's more like, okay, because fiance, there's still like an possibility, like less so than girlfriend, but there's still possibility of breaking up, right?
Yeah.
But then wife is like, okay, we've made a commitment to each other, we're gonna see if this is gonna work out, and then go from there. Yeah.
What
So
about how are you and her family? How's that dynamic? Is it pretty good?
it's pretty good. Yeah. So for on that side, I think the language barrier is a big issue, right? So
Right.
international marriages. So I'm still learning Japanese. I'm still trying to pick that up. But overall, I think we get along pretty well. You know, we, um, even as the boyfriend, it was like it's still I think as the boyfriend there was more of a distance, like, oh, okay, this is like the
Right.
first, like we haven't so like she's bringing over a guy over, and but like the fact that I was coming over was kind of a big deal,
Hmm.
and then after that, yeah, after the marriage, it was like omedetou gozaimasu, like
Yes.
congratulations. Yeah, and now it feels a little bit more like family. Like when I go visit them, it's more like visiting family than visiting. Uh, yeah, because I've seen them more, and I've also met her sibling, and then also like her niece. So that has kind of made the dynamic feel like, okay, this is my second family now, and my other family, my family in
Right.
Japan that I can now that we're married, the dynamic has changed. Like, okay, these are people that I could, if I really needed to, I could rely on as well.
Yeah.
If I need, yeah, yeah.
And
But
then
I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
what about the dynamic between you and your significant other or your wife now? Has that changed at all?
Yeah. So I think going to the funeral made us closer, and also, uh, like arguments and like kind of like compromises
Hmm.
are they're made more with like a long-term view. Like, okay,
Yeah.
um, I have a lot of hobbies, right?
Yeah.
Martial arts, guitar, uh, podcasting. Yeah. So I have a lot of hobbies, and this sometimes would come in conflict with like our quality time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So then this has been a discussion point for us, and so that meaning I realize like I cannot continually fill up my time with all my hobbies. I also have to cut out time, quality time for the missus, you know.
Yeah.
And I think with the marriage, that has been like a priority. Like spending time with her has been more of a priority for me. Whereas in the past, it was always about like, okay, I gotta, you know, go get money, work. Gotta go. I want to get better at my Japanese or my Chinese. I want to get better at martial arts. All these things I would fill my time up with, but then I wasn't leaving time for uh, R&R, right? Rest and
Yeah.
relaxation, and also spending time with her, and just having dinner together and chatting. And so I think that transition has been super helpful for me. I guess I think
Yes.
it's been good for me at figuring out my time management, what's important to me, and what is it. What am I just really filling up my time to just keep busy? Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm keeping busy for the sake of like uh maybe
Right.
not wanting to I don't know, face myself or be alone, or like being not busy, right?
Yeah.
The fact that like I think some people have a fear of being not busy, of feeling unproductive. And I think I have that where I always feel like she calls me like that, like I gotta keep moving like a fish,
Yeah.
like yeah, yeah. Um, and I understand. I see like I see the good and bad of that. I think I just need I need moderation. I mean, for yourself, like was because I know you're big on like your kung fu, right? So was that and then I know that your significant other also has her projects and stuff. Like how has that conversation been like mitigating like, okay, where so you have your busy life, I have my busy life, we have your hobbies, I have my hobbies. Where can we meet in the middle and find quality time? Like how is that conversation for you?
I don't know if we had a conversation. Well, we've had conversations once we had kids, right? That changes the dynamic completely. But when we first got married, I still surfed 2 times a week. I
Oh
still
yeah,
taught
surfing.
food.
Hmm.
Yeah, I still did all that. I did cut out gaming though. I don't game as much. I don't play video games, whether it's like on the Nintendo Switch or on the computer. I don't do that anymore. I should And then it's only recently, once the kids got older, that I started playing mobile games. But
Okay.
my surfing has come down from like 2 times a week to 1 time a week. And
Oh,
it's a compromise between my surfing, and then now I'm teaching my kids kung fu. So
ah,
instead of going 2 days a week, 2 mornings a week, weekend, I will teach my kids one morning, this morning on Saturday mornings with their
yeah.
friends, and then Sunday morning is like devoted to my surfing. And after surfing, I have to do the rest of the stuff. Right? I have to go take my mom shopping. I have to go
Mm,
do all the other chores at home, whether it's
yeah.
laundry or what have you. So that's how it's broken up. And then my wife, she has a lot of projects, but for her, she's fortunate enough to have a job that is also her hobby, right? So she's
Okay.
pursuing the arts, and it's part of her job, and she's required to go and see plays and things like that. So,
Right, right.
but that's also a hobby of hers to go evaluate other performances, other ways, other shows that have um how other shows have been directed and what she would have done different, things like that. But that's also her
Mm.
hobby. But she also has, I mean, she her other hobbies are like uh, a pandemic thing is where she got lots of indoor plants. We have tons of indoor plants. So that's her other thing, and hopefully they don't die when she leaves. But so
Because she travels a lot for her work, right? So yeah,
yeah, she just
yeah,
got back extend from an extended stay directing a show, and she
yeah.
just got back, but then she's leaving tomorrow morning for another week, and she'll be back next week.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that's something you have to work out with her as like time with kids or who's taking care of the kids and stuff, or is that you have a system already, I guess? Yeah.
Pretty much a system. I mean, if she has to go on these work trips, then we already hired someone to drop off the kids. I can't. The only thing I can't do is drop off the kids in the morning. It's tough because I work East Coast hours, and their drop off is
Ah,
right in the middle of the workday. So what happens is we hired an actor to drop off the kids, and then
okay.
my workday ends when their school ends, so I
Yeah.
can gather my stuff. And every now and then I might have a meeting that's late, and it would require asking a favor from a friend to pick them up, and then I'll go pick them up from their house.
Yeah.
But the system is already in place, right? The
Okay.
routine's already in place. My mom helps with cooking, making
Yeah.
lunch and cooking dinner, so I don't have to worry about that. I used to worry about that when my mom wasn't living with us,
Yeah.
and then thinking about what I'm gonna make for the kids that's nutritious and delicious that they will eat. So
Uh, so
yeah,
that
but
part of
as
the brain has been offloaded to your mom, like your
yeah,
mom.
that
Yeah.
and now my mom, she was like, I stress out every week to figure out what I'm gonna cook for the week. And then we go to the Japanese supermarket that's like an hour or 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then she insists on going there because it has the most variety. It's the largest Japanese supermarket in LA. So
Oh,
we
cool,
go
cool.
there for the meat and the vegetables and all this other stuff that she wants to buy.
Is it Mitsuya or is
It's
it kind of
Marukai.
like Marukai?
Marukai.
Okay.
Well, it's actually owned by Don Quixote.
I have a Don Quixote near me.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I,
They call it Donkey, Donkey. Yeah,
yeah, Don Quixote.
yeah.
And I didn't, well, there are a couple of things about Don Quixote I didn't know. One, I didn't know it was named after Don Quixote because the way they say it, donkey, right? I thought it was donkey. What is
I thought it was
donkey?
Donkey too. Yeah,
Yeah, what's Hote? But Marukai I don't know if they got bought out or what have you, but now they're rebranded themselves as Tokyo Central. So there's it's called Tokyo Central, but you can still look at Marukai and everyone will know where you're going.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
if you go inside, they have a lot of housewares that you would find at Don Quixote, and they have the penguin from Don Quixote.
Yes, the penguin. Yeah, with that the
Yeah.
cap and stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So they have all that. So I do that every Sunday. It's like a known thing. And then if my wife is home, then the kids stay home. But if my wife
Oh,
is not home, then they're coming with us to go shopping, which is the most boring thing for them.
oh, really?
Well, I don't blame them. I mean, grocery shopping is not exciting.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. That's another thing is like figuring out taste. So living with the wife and cooking for each other. Sometimes because I usually get home before her.
Yeah.
And then I'll cook dinner and then sometimes she'll cook a bento for me for lunch.
Oh,
And
nice.
so yeah, the whole Japanese wives thing. I was like, I was like, oh wow, this is a thing. Okay. Um, so and then sometimes yeah, we'll switch off with the dinner. But yeah, figure so I realized that this is might be a cultural thing, but or like a yeah, American taste buds or our I think we're used to more heavy flavors, more oily, more salty, more sweet. Um, that
I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
a Chinese thing.
Maybe that might be yeah. So she like so I'll cook. No, she like I have my pasta. I've been cooking that for years. I have a pasta recipe I do, and she likes it, but she's like, oh yeah, this is your flavor. This is like the. And then when she cooks me like her pasta version, or it's like lighter, it's like less salty. Um, and I'm like, oh, and I'll be the guy like adding like salt. And I'll be adding some salt. She's like, "What? It's not good?" She's like, "No, it's good. It's just just some some more. I wanna raise my blood pressure a little bit more.
Yeah,
So yeah. So I've
it's
noticed that and just kind of negotiating that. So I think now I kind of have a good gauge of what flavors and what she likes, and I try not to do so heavy. It's probably healthier that way too. Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure it's healthier, but well, my mom, I mean, she grew up in Japan. She lived in Japan for so long, but her flavor palette is actually a lot heavier than a typical Japanese person. I think it's just like person to
Ah,
person. So, I mean, she cooked for her husband, who was okay with all the foods that she made.
mm.
So I'm wondering, I have to tell her to tone it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have to tell her to cut it back. But I remember living with this Chinese family when I first graduated from undergrad. As a family
Yeah.
friend because I moved out to Bay Area. They're from Hangzhou outside of Shanghai. They had to cut their salt and saltiness for me. And when I ate their food, it is super heavy on the flavors, like super heavy. And they told me to
Oh,
cut it in half for me. And I was like, oh my God, what sort of like cooking do they do that's so salty that they
right.
have to cut it in half and it's still salty for me? I was like, wow. So
Hangzhou. Okay, okay,
so
Hangzhou. Yeah.
it's just like um province to province or person to person, who knows?
Right. I do think, yeah, Chinese flavors and pretty heavy, I would say, yeah.
But
And
I
then
mean
like, yeah.
Japanese people have that too. Like certain things, right? Like umeboshi is really sour. And you
The sour plum thing,
yeah,
umeboshi. Yeah.
it's really sour. Like I even thinking about it, my mouth starts watering because it's so tart. It's not my thing, but I remember eating it, but Japanese people love it. That thing is tart as tart can be. And you
Now
just
that I
eat it
think
with
about,
rice.
yeah, maybe it's not heavy flavor. Maybe it's not like a American thing or a Chinese thing or It's like each country has their own heavy dishes, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do notice the ramen broth here. Some ramen, it's like it's there's so much variety in ramen. I guess that's the main thing. When you come to Japan, you realize, oh, ramen is not just one flavor. There's so
Yeah.
many different
Yeah.
flavors. Yeah. So there's like the older generation guys, like those guys with like I visited this one guy. He had like a shop in like next to a farming field,
Uh-huh.
and and he's like, and he had his old ramen wheel cart. He just boarded it up and made it like put a roof on top, so it's like a little shop.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I found it on Google Maps. I'm like, okay, wait, is this looks like a residential house? And he's like, oh no, here, come in, So I ate there. So he's been making ramen for like 60 years or something. But his ramen wasn't like heavy. It was kind of light,
Yeah.
and I think it might change because he tastes the soup before he makes
Yeah.
it, um and we went to another ramen spot. It's like a small hole in the wall on the second floor, and he's also an older. I don't know if this is a trend, but he's also an older Japanese guy, and the flavor is kind of light too. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I go to like those maybe those shops where like either it's a franchise or it's catered to like younger, like to bigger crowd,
Yeah.
maybe near like the stations and stuff like that. Some of that ramen's kind of heavy,
Oh
I
yeah.
noticed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that when you're visiting here, but like of course there's like shio ramen, which is like the soy sauce, and the shio ramen, which is the salt ramen. And I had shio with the when the uh I think shio is a little bit on the lighter side for
Hmm.
me. It tastes like, yeah. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like some, yeah. So ramen ranges as far as heavy to light. There's a huge range already there in that spectrum.
Yeah, it's just so amazing to think about the different ramens that are available in Japan that are no longer available here.
Oh,
Um, shoyu is known to be a Tokyo thing, and shio is
mm.
supposed to be like Kansai, and then miso is supposed to be the Northerners, and tonkotsu is
Ah,
a far south. Tonkotsu
Tonga,
ramen is like from Kagoshima or wherever from Kyushu area,
Kyushu,
but
yeah.
because they have like pork farms or whatever it is, but in LA now it's almost all tonkotsu, and
Mm,
and it's no longer special. I remember going to Japan and thinking, "Oh, tonkotsu is the greatest thing ever," and
yeah.
then now everywhere has tonkotsu, and it's no longer shio and shoyu. There's like a few places that still serve that the other variations, but tonkotsu has basically taken over, and I think a lot of Americans probably now associate ramen with tonkotsu only.
That's interesting because that's what I when I first came to Japan, I was like, why doesn't it taste like the ramen I had in America? I was
Yeah,
like, oh, because there's miso, there's shio, there's shoyu, like
yeah.
yeah. And then if you go to Hokkaido, they have butter, in their ramen, yeah, and
You
corn,
should,
yeah.
yeah, you can get that in Tokyo. I remember getting it in the 90s. It was like an option. You can get a butter and corn. I was like, what? And then the locals were like, hey, yeah, you can get that. And I was like, oh,
Right,
cool. And I tried it and I was like, oh, it's not bad. I just added,
right, yeah.
yeah, a different flavor profile.
Right. Because it's like in Kyoto, Tokyo, like major cities, they usually have like a ramen. Like sometimes they have these places which are like there's like I think in Kyoto it's called like Ramen Square or Ramen Hall, and they'll have ramen from all around Japan in one area. I think they have that in Tokyo too, like ramen from all around the Japan area. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
Tokyo Ramen Museum. You have to like
Oh,
pay a fare to go in, and then they have like stalls all around. It's like a gigantic food court. I've never been, but they also had a curry museum back in the day, and they had curry restaurants from all around Japan, and you can get like it was so much food. Even if you get half the portion, you could probably maybe like sample two stalls, and then that's it. And
hmm.
there's no way. The only advantage is that you don't have to travel around Japan to sample it. You can go one day and then come back and go back and whatever.
Yeah. So that's one good thing about, yeah, Japan is like the ramen is amazing.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
like I think the worst ramen I had in Japan was probably at one of the hotels. You,
Yeah.
you know how hotels are basically a shopping mall, and it was on the fifth or sixth floor, and it just like looked very sterile, and it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
Just can't help it.
Yeah.
But the smell is
So
different. You can smell it as soon as like the bowl comes out. The smell already is like way different from anything in America.
mm. Oh, one thing, I mean, I had it in America first, but like tsukemen, like the dipping
Skimming,
noodles.
yeah, skimming.
Yeah, tsukemen. Like yeah, I that's become like a go-to for me now. Like if they have it, I'll try that. Like
That's
ramen's
usually
good.
that's
Yeah.
saltier, right?
It's saltier and like but it's just something the action of dipping it and then slurping the noodles is just like it's such a good like feel like it tastes great too. So that's the
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
well, I mean, they have it here, obviously. It's some places will have it. Even Daikokia started serving skimming,
Is that
but
Japantown or Saltel or oh
both,
that
I think.
they
Daikokia, Little Tokyo, has one.
the one where they always usually have a line and then at
Yeah, yeah,
lunchtime.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But the thing is, like, I found with skimming is that the the broth comes out hot and it's like thick or whatever. But as you like add the dip and stuff,
Yeah,
the the noodles are kind of lukewarm, and so
yeah,
it lowers the temperature of the broth. And then
right.
by the time we're done, I was like, oh man, it's kind of
Cold.
cold and not as like delicious as
Ah,
you want it to be.
right. So there's some places like you can get
A
hot
refill.
noodles. You can get hot
Mm,
noodles, and then you can
okay.
get refilled. Like you can get another. I forget what the term is,
Haidama.
but tie down. Yeah,
Haidama.
yeah, yeah. You get the refill noodles, but you have to like make sure that you let them know in advance so they have it
Ready to
um
go.
you're ready to go. Yeah, yeah.
But
Um, yeah.
the most popular place in LA, Tsuchida, they won awards or whatever.
Yeah,
And
and that's where I first had it in America. Yeah, in LA.
yeah,
Yeah.
they will actually add something to your broth at the end. You know, you add
Oh.
lime halfway through to change the flavor of the soup, and then
Mm.
they add another broth or something like that, and it will change it so you can drink it, so it's no longer thick, but the flavor changes with it too.
That's good. Yeah, I want to get some. Yeah, to get me maybe later. But yeah, so that's been good. So cooking at home has been interesting because so we're figuring out like our tastes and our
And portions.
preferences, portions. Yeah, I usually eat the most, so like we have it so that I pay a higher percentage for the groceries than she
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
Yeah, something like yeah, yeah. So um and that makes sense. And I uh so that and then we yeah, the thing about like certain things like groceries, so we'll have like a dedicated like IC card for groceries and stuff, and
yeah,
which we both put in money into and use that to scan and stuff. So
yeah,
that's been like so stuff like that, like how navigating uh another person's life with my own life versus like because I've been single for so long. I mentioned in the previous podcast, like I even went to therapy about that, about like
yeah.
how to transition from being like the single bachelor to the married man. I mean, I still have those things where it's like, oh, I see a hot chick. I'm like, okay, can't look too long, you know. You know, like maybe 2 seconds and then stop. Or like I'll, you know, and but I realize now that it's similar to like, meditation. It's like they're kind of like uh these like yeah, it's totally fine to see to recognize a thought or to recognize a hot woman or
Yeah,
attractive
attractive person.
person. But then yeah, you just let it go. You just observe it. You just
Yeah.
observe the thought. You observe it. And it doesn't let you don't have to be like dragged along like by the train of thought, yeah.
I think
So that yeah,
the biggest
yeah.
change is with money, right? Because before you can go, oh, you know what? I want to go buy some Air Jordans. And you don't think about it and just go buy Air Jordans. There might be
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
180 or $200. But now that you're married, you're like, oh, I think we should talk about these purchases, right? That reach a certain threshold. And then they might be extraneous. Do I really need another Lakers hat? No. Do I want one? Sure. But am I
Mm,
going to go buy it? Probably not. Especially once you have kids, then it's like, oh, I cannot just go and spend and buy things. I can't buy toys, if you
yeah.
will, because then it becomes a thing, right? You're taking something away from the kids, but it'll shift to where you buy things for the kids that you like.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you buy things and then in a way that you can also appreciate it as well because it's for your kid. Yeah, yeah.
Like
And
Lego sets, right? Like I used to love buying Lego sets, and then I'm not building them anymore, right?
yeah.
And then I realized that after I build it, it's no longer fun. I'm not
Huh.
sitting there making stories with like the X-Wing fighter or whatever and chasing a TIE fighter, but my son will still do that. So
Oh, cool, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
he will actually play with the toys after, whereas I would build it and just have it, sitting there and looking at it.
Right.
So those are
Yeah.
the things that change as soon as you first you have a kid, or first you get married, then you have kids, and then things like the thought process changes, right? What you can and cannot do with your money, even though you might make it or whatever, but you're not gonna like just act on it on an impulse. You
On
have to think about
impulse.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. That reminds me, just recent, like I'm actually calling from my new Mac. I got the new MacBook Pro.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, the
M2,
14 inch.
M2,
M2, yeah,
M2
M2.
Pro.
I
Oh,
went for the Max. I
oh,
it's probably like overload, but like I'm trying to like future proof. Like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
use I used my last Mac for like my last Mac was 2015,
right.
and then like the hard drive died and I was like, and my friend gave me this other MacBook that's like 2017 that he
Yeah.
got from like a company that was just like, they were just like selling or recycling their old MacBooks. But then there were some issues with that as well. The battery was gone, so I was just like, okay, I'm going to I'm just gonna invest in myself, you know.
Yeah.
But I talked with the wife first.
Yeah.
I
It's
talked
a
with the wife
significant
first.
purchase.
It's a it's the most probably, aside from a car, right? Like it's
Yeah.
probably like and
It goes
it's like
house, car, computer.
computer. So
Or
I
TV.
let right, and I'm an educator, right? I teach
Yeah.
English in Japan, so I can get the educator discount. And
Right.
and also since I'm paying in yen, it's slightly cheaper than if I was in the US buying.
Right.
Slightly cheaper. Yeah, yeah. And so, okay. And I let her know, hey, I'm gonna get this MacBook. Um, and like there's a cheaper version, but I want to go for the higher version because maybe I'll edit stuff in the future, more stuff in the future. She's like, okay, do you really need the higher version?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Was it
I'm
the,
like, yeah,
at
yeah,
least you didn't
sorry, go
get the
ahead.
ultra, right? You didn't get the M2
I didn't,
ultra.
okay, I didn't do the max specs. I got like, so here's the base level spec, like the nicer spec, super nice, and then like yeah, like
The
crazy
ultra.
spec.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I got 14 inch, so I got second to highest, but only like 1 terabyte hard drive.
Well,
Um,
that's more than
but
enough.
it's more than enough. Yeah, yeah. I didn't max out the specs because that's just overkill. But I got like yeah the M2 Max specs.
But 14 inches like standard. I mean, the next size up is 16, and then the one down is 13, and you don't get the M2 Pro, right? Or
No, yeah, yeah.
the
M2 is
Max or whatever.
the 14 inch. Like I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and it's interesting. Like each person has their own preference. Like one guy's like, oh, 16 inch, you gotta get the 16 inch because it's like, some thermal stuff is better and like
Yeah.
yeah, and big screen. But then I listen to some other guys on YouTube and it's like, you know, it's just so much better with travel. And I travel,
Yeah.
I move
Yeah.
around. And I think for me, after hearing, seeing some of those opinions, like yeah, 14 inch definitely has been great.
I think the
Um,
14 inches is the right size,
It's the right,
personally.
it's just the
Yeah.
right size, and then the
Yeah.
power, like I haven't even pushed it yet, but it's pretty amazing just with the basic usage.
Right.
But anyways, I talked with the wife about it, and yeah, the conversation, and this is what I like, this is what we both agreed on, is that yeah, it's an investment in myself. It's something I use for work. It's something I use for also like potentially future work, and
Yeah.
yeah. Now, if it was like just a pair of, like expensive shoes, even though I don't really collect shoes or anything, then maybe it's like, I mean, I'm not a basketball player, right? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So maybe there's that. And also it is my own money, but at the same time, now I recognize that part of my brain, like, okay, this money could be used for, we're gonna move soon, right? We
Yeah.
gotta buy new furniture. We gotta maybe think about, saving for a house eventually, and then maybe saving for kids eventually, right? So
Yes.
no, that's an interesting part of the brain that's been acting like now it's not just about me. Um, it's so interesting, like just it's interesting like how life changes where I went from I went from a place of like I had like 7,000, $10,000 worth of debt on credit cards, and now I'm finally in a place where like I can actually put that same amount into like, you know or I could save that amount. I have the ability to save money, right? Versus,
Yeah.
so I went from a place of like huge credit card debt to now, and then also as my parents and family members are getting older, and now that they realize I'm married, they're more willing to like give me money towards like a house or something like that. But I was like, but then it's interesting because now I'm in a place where I don't necessarily need their help because I'm working like this job, and I'm working something on the side. So it's like uh it's really interesting because as I get older, uh the switch from like there was a time where like money was such a huge, it's still like a big deal for me, right? But
Yeah.
where I was just like just terrible with money. Like, and then the time when I finally like I think I have it, I got better with it. Is then like family are like, oh hey, you want some more money? I'm like, actually, I could have used that 10 years ago, but
Yeah, yeah,
but I get it because it's like they see that I'm more responsible now. They're not
yeah.
like so when the time when I wasn't that responsible with money, it's probably better that they didn't bail me out, I guess is what
Right,
I'm trying to say. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. I had to go through that poor experience of like soup all that credit card debt to realize the importance of money. And then now I'm in a place. I'm glad that I learned those lessons because now I can apply those lessons with my significant other. I guess
Right.
is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So how's
yeah.
your martial arts coming along?
Martial arts wise, I'm just so I pared it down. So I used to go
Have
three
to.
times a week for
Yeah.
jujitsu, and yeah, now with the wife, I go 2 times a week. Yeah, and then I do weight train. I used to do weight training 2 times a week, but now I just do that once a week. So my hobbies, I've kind of pared it down so I have more time for cooking, spending
Yeah.
time with her, and then yeah. But my martial arts, it's been yeah, it's been okay. Sometimes I'll go in and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm the best, like no one's hitting me. And then some days like I'll get stubbed and so but the thing I think is as with any habit or skill, just keep going and then there's like it's like like a chart like this going up and down but slightly going up and then,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How's your martial arts coming along? Yeah.
That's okay. I found someone who will teach me like a different spear set. It's all still Chole foot, but from like a way different lineage. It looks way different than anything that I do.
Yeah.
And he's like even teaching me a handset. And I was like, oh, I know that handset. But when he started doing it, I was like, no, I don't know that handset. It's like a different variation. So I'm learning that before he moves to Chicago. That part is fun. And then
Uh,
one of my old Kung Fu students, he sent me a bunch of videotapes and I had them digitized. And
okay.
yeah, some of them, like there are two videos of me doing it when I was in my 21 or whatever. And both
Wow.
instances, yeah, I did a handset and then I was like, I bobbled at the very, very end. And I remember why. It's because I hyperextend my knee like the week before. So I wasn't
Oh.
like 100%. And then I did the three sectional staff and I had forgotten that like I screwed up the beginning and the end, like, catching it.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh yeah, it's because I was in the Bay Area and I had like 2 hours of sleep. And I drove all the way down from the Bay Area just to go to Oceanside just to do that one set. And then I was like so tired, but I drove like 8 hours, with 2 hours of sleep, and then just to get there on time to go do that. And I was like tired.
That's dangerous. Yeah, you can't do that now. Yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
I can't do that now. I'm like way too old for that kind of crap. But when you're
Yeah,
young, you
yeah.
don't care. You're just like, oh
Right.
yeah, it's no problem. But I will say after looking at my handset that I did, it's very sterile. It's like technically correct everywhere, but it doesn't, there's like something missing that I can recognize now as I'm older. But I don't
Oh,
have
interesting.
yeah, the energy of youth to like do the set like uh, well, I shouldn't say that. I can still do it. I still do it. I still practice it, but I do it differently now. And I see it. I go, oh yeah, that's way different than what I would tell even if I were my student now, I was like, that looks technically correct, but there's something missing. Yeah.
Is it if you had to articulate that missing, like what would that be, I guess? What would the how would you articulate what's missing? Because I
It's
think I understand what you're saying because I've seen that in myself too. Yeah.
well, it's my Sifu once told me that when I was in San Francisco learning from him, he was like, "Oh, you do everything correct, but it's just there's lacking a little bit of flavor." And if I were to articulate it, it's a little nuance that he provided to me, is that I don't look like I might have the aggression, but I don't look like I have the intent. It's just a small little change here and there. It's about posture. And I do something with like the tire claw and you're like straight up and down on one leg, but you should actually arch in like you're actually going to attack something. And just
Mm,
that little bit will change the whole look of it. And then even when you
mm,
punch, you stand straight up and then in a good horse stance, everything's hip tucked in, but knees bowed out, and everything's technically correct, but you have to arch just a little bit, like you're actually going to go into something. Not a
Mm,
lot, but just a little bit will make a whole world of difference.
that's interesting because I think that's connected to intent, right? Like to thought
Yeah,
or like, yeah.
yeah,
What's yeah. I feel that now with I practice, I'm doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu where I realized uh that with jiu-jitsu you have a little bit of more space with like in sparring there's space too like when you're feeling each other out.
yeah.
In jiu-jitsu you even have a little bit more space because then like you can certain positions you can stall and give yourself a moment to breathe and think about what you want to do next. So I realize now before I was just trying to survive, just scramble, and but now I'm in a position where like okay, I know he's trying to do something like this. He's trying to get me in like a triangle or something,
Right.
but what's my move going to be? And sometimes I don't know the answer. I just have to go through with feeling. But I realize like now I can catch myself in each be present and realize, okay, what do I want to do? And then it's not about winning. Like when we're sparring or rolling, it's not
Yeah.
about, I realized before it was usually about winning. Like, okay, this by winning, I realized I used to think by winning, that shows
Mhm.
how much, I'm getting better. But that's not true because then it it's basically I'm just choosing the shortest path to like get to victory versus working on okay maybe I should learn how to pass guard better, so working on a certain skill set. So one thing I'm doing now is I'm trying to work from bottom. So in jiu-jitsu there's the top and the bottom, right?
Yep.
And I'm trying to work because I was listening to like John Danaher. He's a BJJ teacher, and he was mentioning how like if you are able to survive on the bottom and like attack from the bottom, that will give you that will give you more confidence to be like, okay, you're put in a more disadvantageous position and can survive. That'll give me the confidence to like attack from top or from any position. So that's something I'm trying to be more intentional about, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the whole point of rolling, right? You want to work
Yeah.
at certain techniques, not so much
Yeah.
winning. Winning will come. It's about the process.
Right. It's about the
Kobe Bryant
process.
talks about it. It's like it's all about the process. You want to like work on your craft, making things better, and then the winning will come later, right?
Right.
If you can perfect certain aspects, certain techniques, everything will come naturally. But if you're like
Mm,
always striving, pushing, I just want to win, you might
yeah,
like be short-sighted and just like use the easiest thing possible to make that happen. But
exactly. Yeah.
and then you kind of stunt the growth for like the winning of other things or
Right.
learning of other things. And then yeah, it's just there's a book. Did you ever read this book called Inner Game of Tennis?
No, I've heard of it though. Yeah.
Yeah, the inner game of tennis is basically you do all your work during practice. And so when
Huh.
it comes to game time, you just got to relax and trust that your work ethic and the work that you put in, off the court or off the mat will actually work, whatever. When you actually need it, it will come out.
Yeah.
You just have to,
Mm,
you can't be like so tight about it. Like, I got to do this and that. You just have to trust that you do put in all the work and then your body will know.
right. And I think getting tapped or getting submitted, uh, was a big ego blow before, but now I realize like, oh, it's okay. There's something I need to work on, there's
Yeah,
something or like whenever I used to spar getting tapped, like, oh, okay, I need to work on something. I need to work on my defense, like
right.
but yeah, another thing with getting older is like, yeah, I'm not doing I don't yeah, I don't think I can do stand-up sparring anymore. Not like unless it's like super controlled with like or like no major hits to the head. But I think for now I'm okay. Yeah,
You
I don't want.
can. You can. The thing is, like, I was talking to this guy who's teaching me the set, and he brought up a great point. You're learning at a certain point of time in the Sifu's career, right? When he's younger, he's going to teach you an more aggressive style of fighting. because that's how he is. Speed, power, all this stuff, more aggressive. But as he gets older, he's not going to fight that way either, right?
Mm,
He's not going to rely on speed and athleticism to get what he wants. He's going to be a little bit more crafty, and that's what he's going to teach you.
mm,
So as you get older and as I get older, I'm not going to be at the fastest guy on the sparring match, right? I have
yeah.
to like rely on being a little smarter on how to get to where I want to get, control the opponent.
Mm, like head movement, like being more evasive versus being like head on. Yeah.
Yeah, and not panic too much, right? You
Yeah.
can actually learn and use your all the skills that you're supposed to be using and not rely on speed and strength to like overcome things. So if
Mm,
someone comes directly, you have to learn how to redirect and parry. Move your
right.
feet, go to the side. It doesn't have to be, a linear thing, go straight back and forth. It can just be, I'm going to sidestep, or I can just,
Mm,
even like a small little movement will change things. So as you can see, the shift in the person moving, if you move in just a little bit, it changes how they have to kick you, right? Because
mm.
the range is different.
I think that's pretty amazing how like as you get better at martial arts, you get better at reading intention.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you're able to see in your younger self, like, there's something's missing, that's a sign of maturity, I think, right? Um, I had like there's some Tai Chi teachers, they're like, James, something's a little off. And I was like, what the hell? Like everything's in the right place. I have
Yeah.
I'm doing the single whip, everything's there. And there's like, nope, it's there's just and yeah, I think like to be able to see that and to be able to gauge that as you get older, that's pretty amazing. I think I'm getting a little bit better at that, but I still have more work to do, obviously. Yeah.
Have you thought
Yeah.
about looking for a Baji teacher? Supposed to be a really good Baji teacher in Japan. There's might even be a
Uh,
Tongbei teacher out there too.
I have it because of the talk we had about like hobbies and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm already like pared down my jujitsu. But I do think eventually when I do make the move closer to Tokyo, that's something I'll look into. I think there's more stuff out there too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but there, this is good. Yeah, there's another thing is like, but yeah, there's some like the fact that I was able to find a good school here too. I don't know if there's any Chinese martial arts around where I'm at. There might be. I looked around a bit, um, but yeah, I'll probably look into it later. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But that's another thing I've been practicing too is packaging or package arrive.
Oh.
It's okay. It's blurred. They can't see you. Yeah.
Does she understand
看不到.
English?
Simple English. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But um, よかった. But yeah, I guess the other thing is one thing I've been talking about. Sometimes I go to therapy about once a month, like through this online therapy. Um, 可以啊，可以啊. And is about being uh I guess present, right, and mindful, and also being and something I also been working on is being grateful for what I have going for myself now. I think recently with like the funeral of my great aunt, it's helped me put into perspective about a lot of things I have a lot of regret about, right? Or a lot
Hmm.
of things that I have I'm not too like for example, okay, so I live in Kansai area, like kind of rural area, but like if I was in closer to a bigger city like Tokyo or something, I'd have more opportunities. I could find more Chinese martial arts, some whatever. But one thing I realized, like, well, actually living here is a unique experience in itself. Like
Yeah.
I get to experience what it lives like to live in I forget what tier number it is, but like in a city where it's not like hella people, it's not like super small, but it's not super inaka, super countryside. And that's a valuable experience in itself, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that I was able to find, a really good jiu-jitsu school nearby too is pretty amazing. So I think I'm learning as I get older and as being in a relationship, being grateful for what's working and whatever I have in front of me, you know? And because sometimes I think I'm a little bit too hard on myself, uh, uh, and or I'm maybe a little bit ungrateful for what I already have. But I think with the marriage, I realized, okay, uh, what like even my wife will call me on it. Like I have a regret sickness. Like I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. Or uh, it could be, like I shouldn't have, um, you know, whatever it is. I think I put uh overreact to certain things, right? Sorry, this is kind of a tangent, uh, but it's been helpful for me to be in a relationship and being uh open to, like, oh, it's okay to feel regret and it's okay, but you know, what's I think by just being mindful and by being present, you don't have to force the positive. If it sucks, it sucks, right?
Yeah.
But by recognizing whatever sucks, or then you recognize, oh, what needs to change, right? So, for example, I guess when I went to the funeral recently, I had to do some work still, and on my laptop, and I try to do it so that it was in the morning and at night, and then so during the day I could be present for like the funeral proceedings. It's like a traditional Taiwanese Chinese funeral,
Yeah.
um, for my great aunt, where it was like the first day was like we had to do like 3 hours of like reading from the
Yeah.
sutra book,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the second day was with the cremation day, right? And I had this a task for work that I didn't finish yet. I was like, oh damn, I didn't finish it before Taiwan, so I was trying to finish it while I was in Taiwan, and I had so much regret about feeling like not being present enough, or not being or like not able to manage my time better. But what I did practice while I was there was like, okay, funeral, I'm at the funeral, right? I'm at back at the hotel. Okay, I'm gonna work at the work thing, whatever that is. And but I did talk to my therapist about this, and he made a good point and said, throughout the day, just try breathing, try
Yeah.
breathing, exhaling, and try to be mindful of what's going on and what's happening. And that in itself is a positive. Okay, that's a win already. And
Yeah.
then recognize, okay, what's going on here? What body sensations am I feeling? Because all that stuff that I just said, uh, for me is it's just thought. It's my brain trying to find the worst in the situation, trying to pick at myself. So that's something I've been working on. I don't know if you have any similar experiences of like of like feelings of regret or like not being good enough, but that's something I've had recently. Anyways, I don't
Yeah.
know why I went to that tangent, but yeah.
It's not a recent thing. I've always like in the moment, I go, oh, that's good enough. But when I look back on it, I was like, oh, damn it. Why didn't I just like put a little bit more effort into whatever the thing was? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have those moments too. And even conversations and presentations and work and whatever. I was like, oh, I could have done this XYZ better. But it's just like a learning thing for the next time, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah. And also it's like going back to it, whatever happens, it happens, right?
yeah,
It's like the present, the past, future, like given the exact same conditions, your mindset, there's no way you would have acted differently. It
yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. I have like so many regrets regarding my career.
Okay.
It's like all over the place. And, I can look back and think about, oh, there was this like one decision where I made. I was like, I worked for this company and I hated it. I hated the whole time and it completely derailed everything. And I accepted it through a family friend. I got this job. And then like a week after I accepted it, Disney called me up like, "Hey, are you available? We have a strategy position. It's like 6 figures." And in my mind, I was like, "Oh, I should have done what was best for me
Yeah.
and gone and at least interviewed. And maybe I would have got the job. Maybe I wouldn't have got the job. Doesn't matter. But now I won't never know.
You never.
And
Yeah.
now my career is like completely in a different path than if I would have taken the Disney job, which is more in line with getting, the reason why I got my graduate degree was to get a really good job that was strategy related, etc. And I didn't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I think about that all the time. It messes with me. But the thing is, like, what did I get from working, going the path that I did? Well, if I didn't do that path, would I have been married to my wife? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Would I have met like all these other people? Probably not. So it would have been a completely different life. But is it better or worse? Who the hell knows? And
No one
I
knows.
am here based upon, like you said, the decisions I made at that moment. And if I got to redo it and I only knew about all the information I knew at that time, I would probably make the same mistake again. Or not the same
Yeah.
mistake, but the same choice again. Because I just operated on those things, that information at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point because seeing the bigger picture of like where you are now, like would you have met your wife? No, probably. Yeah, it would. We don't know. We don't know
Don't
what
know.
the other alternative. Yeah, yeah. Maybe if like they call it maybe in a different universe. Like there's a many worlds principle. There's many different universes. They're living that reality, but we're in this
Yes.
reality. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's all we know. Yeah,
There
yeah.
there was a
So
video. Um, PBS puts out a video on YouTube. It's about space time and like all these ideas about physics and stuff. And there was one particular video that I don't know why, but it brought me like a lot of calm. And it was the idea that we view time linearly, right? From start to finish.
yeah,
And that's only the way we view it. But he said that time is actually a dot. And or our not time, but our life is already it's just a dot. It already occurred. Everything we're gonna do and everything we have done is already everything has happened already. And we just are living it right now. But that's only because our mind can only perceive time forward in a linear fashion.
right.
But
We're turning
everything,
the pages of the book, but the book has
yeah,
already been made. Okay.
yes. So it's
Yeah.
already been written. And then no matter what, it kind of like a little depressing because no matter what you do, you're always going to do the same thing. If you were to live that life again, but
Uh,
everything's already been determined. So you can just live your life and just do the best you can.
right. I think there's a slight caveat to that. But at the same time, it's not really making a huge change. Is that there's quantum physics, right? Where
Yeah,
there's a little bit there's a unpredictability. There's a level of chance in
yeah,
there. So there's no way it's built in. It's built into nature. There's no way to know 100%. Like 99.99. There's no way to know for certain, but at the same time, we have no control of that.
yeah,
That's like that uncertainty. We can't control that, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think Stephen Hawkins talked about like a light cone. Like this is all the information that uh, it like information is like we get information like everything inside the light cone and time. I don't know. I can't explain it, but basically, it's like that's all we'll know and ever know. Everything
yeah.
outside of it, we don't know. But
Right,
this is the cone. This is reality that we live in.
right.
Okay, we can wrap it up then.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, oh, maybe for another conversation. But have you played around with Chat GPT at all, or
I
like
have.
the AI? Yeah, yeah.
I have. I actually made it. I wanted to update my resume after they told me about layoffs at my company. And I
Okay,
didn't
yeah,
want to go through it. I was like, oh, what's a good like bullet point? I just like fed it the information I wanted to feed, the things that it captured. And it spit out a pretty good thing. So I was like, I'll put that on my resume.
yeah. It's pretty amazing, and I think that's gonna be speaking of like you know, major changes to like our society, that's a big one. I think it's only just going to get smarter. It's going to be interesting to see how this tool, uh, it's a tool now, but it might become much more than that in the
Yeah.
future. Yeah,
Well,
it could be a
it's one of the
therapist. Yeah, yeah.
it's one of the sticking points for the WGA, right? The strikes in
Oh, the
Hollywood.
strikes are happening now. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they don't want Chat GPT or any AI to help write scripts. So that's one of the sticking points.
Well, you can't stop people though. You know, like you can't stop technology. Like
Yeah, it's
I'll
hard.
be honest. Yeah, I use it for work too. Like with teaching, like what's a good lesson plan with these keywords, or what's
Yeah,
a good lesson plan on like, the progressive form of a verb, and I'll just to spark ideas. Maybe I'm stuck and I'll ask it to spark an idea for me. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see how this and your kids are gonna be they're gonna be playing with a much higher form of this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways, so let's go to language corner. Yeah. So
yay.
language corner I have for today is nichi nichi kore ko jitsu. So nichi nichi is like my nichi nichi, like day
Yeah,
day, and then kore is like this. Kore
yeah.
ko is like how ski, like the character for good,
Uh-huh.
and jitsu means today, right? Or day.
Yeah,
So nichi nichi kore ko jitsu. Every day is a good day. Enjoy every day. Or
yeah.
another way that my wife has told me how to interpret it is like, um, or actually, not my wife, but like this obasan, this auntie lady. I go to zazen. I sometimes see at zazen where I go practice meditation. Um, she told she she said something how like, okay, she makes it a practice to look at each day of like, okay, I'm not going to say this is a bad day, this is a great day, this is or I mean, I'm not going to say this is a terrible day or a bad day. I'm just going to look at each day as oh, this day I can learn, is a day I can learn from. A terrible
Yeah.
day is a great day I can learn from, or something I had to experience, right? And and I think when I mentioned that to my wife, she's like, oh, she's talking about, this,
Right.
nichi nichi kore, kojutsu. So I was like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And that's something I'm trying to practice or try to be more mindful of. Yeah. But anyways, any words you're learning or
Yeah, my kids actually introduced the word sus to me, but
yeah.
there's a
Oh, is it sussy baka?
sussy
Yeah.
baka. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
gosh, where did it get from? Baka is like the stupid from Japanese.
Right. Right. Right.
And I thought this was like localized to like California, but I was recently in Pittsburgh and I heard some other kids say it, sussy baka. I was like, what? So it's a national thing. I'm so amazed that something like that could be spread so far, but I guess they'd use it for online gaming.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sussy baka. How did
Right.
you
You meant
learn
I
about
think
it?
I no, I learned it from you actually, sussy
Oh,
baka. You told me last podcast, I believe. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what about butakoya? Do you know butakoya?
Now what's that?
Butakoya is pigsty.
Pigs die?
Sty.
Oh,
Pig's
sty.
den. Yeah.
The den. Okay.
Because my mom was talking to somebody and she's like, "Oh, that girl's her apartment's like a her pigsty." I was like, "What?"
Oh,
Butagoya. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
oh, like Nagoya Goya, the like
I
a
don't know.
place.
How
Yeah,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, Buta Goya. That's funny. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, good talk. Good catching up, man. So
Yeah, well,
yeah, let's hang out again soon. Yeah. All right.
yes. All right.
Cool. Peace out. I'll stop recording. Oh yeah, this is James signing off.
This
And
is
then
Dan
yeah.
signing off.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.